Welcome back everyone. So you join me out here in Spain. It's gone midnight and I can't sleep tonight, and I'll tell you why I can't sleep, because I've been keeping up with the news at home. Obviously I was watching Dan Wootton amongst others earlier on talking about poor Lucy Connolly and her treatment in prison. Guys, what can you say about a country that puts a grieving mum in jail for, what was it, 37 months for a rash tweet, albeit not a particularly nice one, for a rash tweet that she deleted pretty much as hastily as she wrote it in the first place. It was a mistake. That was it. It was an unpleasant mistake. And show me a human being that hasn't made an unpleasant mistake in their lives. They simply don't exist, right? Everyone makes mistakes. And Lucy Connolly is paying for that mistake, for her mistake. She is paying a price. It is absolutely abhorrent what is happening to her. Obviously what happened to Peter Lynch, what's happened to Tommy. Lucy's a woman, but whether that means anything to any of you guys or not, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that Lucy is still a grieving mum. She lost her child. I cannot even imagine what that must feel like, or the pain and the grief and the post-traumatic stress disorder that would leave you with. And instead of having some sympathy for Lucy, instead of showing her a bit of empathy, instead of showing her just a tad of understanding, just a shade of sympathy for a woman that's already been through so much in her relative young life, instead of doing that, instead of showing her a bit of humanity, they put her in jail for 37 months. Can you imagine being away from your loved ones, from your children, from your husband who's not well himself? Can you imagine being taken away from your family for that period of time for a single tweet? And Lucy's imprisonment should scare the living daylights out of every single one of us, because it shows you what the authorities are capable of when they want you. When they want you, they will get you. And to hell with what it looks like to the world, to hell with what it looks like to the nation, to hell what it looks like to anyone. We are dealing with the biggest firm in the world, aren't we? The government. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And I'm just flabbergasted after the reports today about Lucy. I can't imagine how that young woman is ever going to recover from the trauma that she's already suffered at such a young age. She has suffered more trauma now than any parent, than any woman should ever have to suffer in their lives. And I said a couple of weeks back on a video that I've started to feel ashamed to be British. And some people were really unhappy with that, but this is a prime example of what I meant by that. I will never be ashamed of being British. I am proud of being British, but I am ashamed of what our country has become. No better than some of the countries in the past that we were brought up to believe were evil. Countries like the Soviet Union and North Korea. We were brought up to believe that those countries were evil and they weren't about freedom, and that if you spoke out of turn you could end up in the gulag. Well, what about poor Lucy Connolly? How will this woman, this is the deal, how will she ever recover from what she's been through? Lucy has not just been sentenced to 37 months in jail. The loss of her child, in addition to what the government have done to her, what the authorities have done to her, is a life sentence. Unquestionably, it's a life sentence. And her sentence will never ever finish, because if you're to believe what Dan Warren was saying earlier on, and I have no reason to disbelieve it, Lucy will be under immense pressure when she comes out of jail to stay very quiet. And if she's got any sense, she'll probably do just that, because her card has been well and truly marked, hasn't it? If I was Lucy Connolly, the moment I was released from jail, I would get out of that goddamn country and I would never return. Because we do not deserve, or she does not deserve the treatment that she's had, particularly after the devastating loss of a child. Did the courts not even consider just forgiving her, just a bit, after what she'd been through? Are they that goddamn heartless? Are we dealing with people that have no heart whatsoever? There's nothing that you could do to Lucy Connolly to give her any more pain than she's already been through, and that she's still obviously suffering. Nothing. This is a human rights violation that I would think is unprecedented in the UK. Only a few weeks back, they were talking about releasing prisoners early due to their background or their circumstances. Well, what about Lucy's circumstances? Surely there can be no one else in the UK that is currently in jail with more or stronger mitigating circumstances than Lucy Connolly. Do you think she'd have wrote that tweet if she hadn't have so tragically lost one of her own young children? Do you think she'd have said what she said? I don't think she would have. And I know what grief does to you. I know, because I've been there. I know what grief does to you, how it can make you feel, how it can make you super angry, and how it can play with your mind. I remember not long after I lost my dad, many, many years ago, it was a few weeks after I'd lost my dad, I went into a car park and I had two of my kids in the back of the car. Now, I never ever kick off in front of my kids. I never have done, and I wouldn't, because it's wrong to kick off in front of the kids. But I remember pulling into a car park, and the guy running the car park told me that I couldn't park in the spot that I'd parked my car in. And I absolutely flipped. I flipped. I remember taking my coat off to the guy, and my children were in the back of the car. And when I got home and I'd calmed down and I told my wife what had happened, I was utterly ashamed of myself. I couldn't believe what I'd done. I couldn't believe my behaviour. And I got back in the car and I drove back to the car park to apologise to the guy concerned, who was only doing his job. But I was grieving. And it's no excuse. But my mind wasn't right. Lucy Connolly's mind wasn't right when she wrote what she wrote. Isn't it time, especially after her treatment or alleged treatment today or yesterday, whenever it was? Sorry, it was a few days back, wasn't it? Because Richard Tice has been to see her today, as far as we know. Isn't it time that the King gave her a pardon? Never mind the judicial system, never mind the Prime Minister, never mind the Home Secretary or the Minister of Justice. Isn't it time that the King, if he had a heart, gave this woman a royal pardon and got her out of jail, let her go home to, I believe, a 12, 13-year-old daughter, let her go home to finish her grieving, let her go home to her husband, let her go home to serve the rest of her life sentence in some peace. What is happening to this woman will surely go down in history as a stain on this country. Some people might not agree with me. Some people may believe that what she said was so bad that she's in the right place. I'd ask you to consider the worst thing that you've ever said and consider how bad that is compared with what Lucy has said or wrote and quickly deleted. Do you think that you'd deserve to be in jail for a sentence of 37 months? I think not. Only the heartless want to see Lucy Connolly remain in jail. Anyone with a heart would say it's time to let her go.